Hi everyone, I'm Will Brown and welcome to the WPQuickies series, bite-sized WordPress tips and tricks in 30 minutes or less. Today, I'm going to be talking about the newly released Gravity Forms version 2.5. So thanks for taking your time to join me on this pretty cold, wet and windy Sydney afternoon, and welcome to those overseas and those watching on replay. Drop us a link in the comments. Let us know who you are and where you're listening from today. That would be great, so I know who's there. And while you're doing that, before we start, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that little bell to get my latest video updates, and give me a thumbs up on Facebook if you're watching on there as well. So we have Mr. Meowpuss from beautiful rainy Sydney. It is rainy. It is indeed today. Listen, guys, I've got quite a lot to do today, so I'm going to probably just get going. And if anyone comes up, I'll give you a shout on screen while I'm doing this, because I've got a lot of slides to get through, and then I'd really like to do a demo at the end just to give you a look and feel of Gravity Forms, especially if you haven't used it before. If you do want to ask a question, drop a question in the comments underneath the video. Use hashtag ask at the beginning, just so I can scroll through and find out all the questions. Joey J tuning in from Singapore. Hi, Joey. Thank you very much. One of our regular WPQuickies viewers. Hope things are going well in Singapore for you today, Joey. Okay, let's get cracking. So Gravity Forms, let's make that a little bit bigger. There we go. Gravity Forms. What is it? It's a premium plugin for WordPress. It allows you to pretty much build any type of form using a drag and drop editor. Gravity Forms has been around for a good number of years now, maybe 4 or 5, maybe longer, 5 or 6 years, could be. It comes with conditional logic. It can take payments, and it can register users on your WordPress website, and much, much, much more. It is definitely one of the most popular form plugins out there. Now, there are many, many add-ons that extend the core functionality of Gravity Forms, such as PDF generation, charts, and all those sort of things like that. Now, developers love Gravity Forms because of its extensive API library. If you can't do anything in the front end, you can pretty much make and do it in the back end using developer tools as well. So I love it. I use Gravity Forms in all my client projects. I'm pretty good at the API as well. I can bend it and make it do anything I want it to do. So I love Gravity Forms. A big thumbs up. So what I'm going to do is, I've got enough time at the end, I'm going to run through a quick live demo as well, just so you can see it in action. But I do have some screenshots coming up in a minute. Now, version 2.5, it was made available on April the 27th, so like a week ago. But the developers, they've divided and staggered its availability as an update for the dashboard. Now, they've largely done that because they don't want to have like a tsunami of issues, because it is a big change. And some people might find that their forms don't look quite right. They'll probably still work, but it might not look so good for that. So they've staggered the launch, the availability of the upgrade. So if you are a Gravity Forms Pro user and 2.5 hasn't hit your dashboard yet, you don't have to wait. You can always log into your account on Gravity Forms, and you can download the zip file and install it locally or on your production server from that way, rather than waiting for the actual update to come on your WordPress dashboard. So what is new in Gravity Forms 2.5? That's what we're looking at today. If you want to know everything about Gravity Forms 2.5, I'm going to drop a link in the comments there, and that will just take you to the documentation on 2.5. It is a big update. So there's quite a lot of stuff to read through in there. So I'm just going to give you an overview of the major stuff that's changed in 2.5. So here we go. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Get rid of me. So the first thing that you will notice is the whole interface has had a makeover. Yep, it's all been blockified. Yay. Now, I am not a huge fan of making everything in WordPress into blocks, but that's a rant for another time and place. So the fields are the same, as well as the drag and drop feature as well. But the interface, as I say, it's had this major overhaul to make it look more like the core WordPress Gutenberg editor and project for that. Okay, so the Biggest new feature is going to be column support. So column support is now built in to Gravity Forms, so you don't have to muck around with CSS values to try and split all the fields into different columns. By default, Gravity Form, it supports 4 columns, and you can see it in action there. I'll make that a little bit bigger from there. You basically drag a field onto the form canvas. If there is an existing field there, then you can see a little tag comes up on the right-hand side, and that shows you that it's going to lock into that row there. Then you just drag it on, and Gravity Forms will automatically create those columns for you, up to 4 columns in width, which is fantastic. Now you just simply need to drag it on. And Gravity Forms, the interface does that all for you. And they are totally responsive as well. So they will stack on top of each other for smaller devices. So that is fantastic, because I know I've struggled with creating multiple columns in Gravity Forms. There's quite a lot of CSS and things don't work out all the time the way you want them, especially across devices. So a lot of work has went into this, and that is fantastic. And it's going to minimize your form's overall form space, the form footprint on your web page, so you'll be able to squeeze more data in without scrolling, and that's good for marketers as well, because they can have more stuff above the fold, right, which is great. So for columns as well, if you have an existing field, let's make it a little bit bigger, and you can hover over the field, and you see on the left-hand side the little control, the 6 little dots there. So that's your grabber, and you just grab the field, drag it along the canvas, and you'll see the blue vertical line, and that'll show you where it's going to snap into. So you can drag an existing field into another column grid or a single field to create more columns. You can drag them around the canvas, no problem at all. To resize the columns, you can actually resize the columns, not by pixel percentage, but they've got like 3 or 4 snap points in there. So you can see it in the little demo here, a little GIF. So you've got like a 50-50 column, and then the person's dragging it to maybe 30 or 25% for those. So there's 3 or 4 different drag points in there. So unfortunately, there's no way to actually in the interface specify an exact percentage. So that, as I say, they've got these like 2 or 3 little snap points. But you know, it's fantastic having that, and it's completely better than what they had before. So that's columns, quite a big new feature in 2.5. What else do we have here? Easy field editing. So in the old interface, the field settings, they expanded down like an accordion when the field was selected. However, in 2.5, all the field settings are in the right-hand side column. So exactly the same as the Gutenberg post and page editor for the WordPress course. You've got this right-hand side column with all your attributes and editing ability. So it only takes a few minutes to get used to the new interface, and immediately it saves you time, because you know exactly where you're going to edit those field settings. Because in the old interface, you're scrolling up and down, and you click on an accordion, it kind of pushes it up and expands it down, and you're not quite sure where the field is. Whereas in this version, you always know that if you click on a field, it's right there on that right-hand side panel. So it does save you a lot of time going around if you're editing large, complex forms. Now, changing the field settings, it makes real-time changes. I don't have a little GIF there, but if you were to type in the field label, just like the WordPress customizer, you can see the real-time updates on the left-hand side form editor. So it's a real-time editing experience for that. So a lot of work done with that as well. For logic, so if you guys are using logic, and I know that I use conditional logic a lot in my Gravity Forms and my client Gravity Forms. So there is a new flyout window. So from the right-hand side, if you scroll down to the bottom, under the advanced, there's a conditional logic, and it will show you if it's active or inactive, so you know if you've got rules in there or not. Click on it, and this little window flies out of the full form editor. So it gives you more space to create and edit complex rules, which is great, because I know that I've got quite a few forms, got lots and lots of conditions on them, and scrolling up and down on that kind of small interface in the old version was quite limiting. So this one gives you that full window editing scroll, so you can really see all your conditional logic and edit those really, really well. Okay. Redesign settings UI. So the whole user interface itself has been given a big makeover, but as well, included in that is the settings as well. So you go into the settings, the form settings, and you'll see that, and all kind of looks the same. All looks very, very much like WordPress Gutenberg core, and even the little icons are kind of representative of those. So the whole theme, the whole UI has been given this nice, shiny, modern, minimal type looking for those. A big thing as well, especially for my European clients, is this personal data form setting. So this is a new thing that's brought into 2.5 into the core. Now, if you include an email address on a form, and you have to include an email address for this to work properly, otherwise it gives you a warning. So if you include an email address on a form, there's a new setting to deal with personal data. So you can prevent the form from storing IP addresses, and you can set the retention policy on that data. So you can retain entries indefinitely, you can trace them automatically, or you can delete entries permanently automatically as well, which is great. Now, I've done a lot of work for clients where, you take some information from a form, they don't want to store it, they just want to action it on it. So they might push it up to the CRM, they might push it into a payment gateway, and they don't want to store any of the entries because they're in European and it's the GDPR. They don't want to get into that whole data storage. So this one here, this option here, delete entries permanently automatically for every form, is a godsend for European clients. They will absolutely love that. They don't need to hire a developer anymore to trash all those entries after the form has been submitted. And as well, Gravity Form now integrates lovely into the WordPress tools for exporting and erasing personal data. You can see at the very bottom there, exporting and erasing data. So it hooks into that whole process. So if you do have a client who requests what data you have or asks to delete all the data, then you can now hook that into the WordPress core and it will delete their entries or tell them what entries they have stored on that database. So it links into that whole WordPress system, and that's just great. We love automation. It's super. A little bit about accessibility. So there's been a ton of work done on making forms more accessible. So Gravity Forms 2.5, it's built to comply with WCAG 2.1 AA. And that is basically the global standard for web accessibility. Now, for full Gravity Forms accessibility checklist, you're going to need to see, and it's a great checklist actually. I'm going to post the link down in the comments there. Go through that, it tells you how to set up WordPress for accessibility, but also how to set up all your forms, what you should do, where the label position should be, what sort of things you should include in order to maintain that WCAG 2.1 AA accessibility. Now, if you are going through the new 2.5 interface, sometimes, if you miss something out, or if you type something wrong, or if you check a few boxes for different options, you're going to get some of these warning labels. Now, you can still save your form and you can still use the form, but these are just accessibility warnings, just telling you that that particular field with that particular option isn't WCAG 2.1 AA compatibility or accessibility. So it's just giving you hints and tips. So if accessibility is super important to you and your company, your branding, your business, then now these Gravity Forms little hints, these little pop-ups will save you a ton of pain if you can try and track down why those forms aren't accessible. So that is a great idea, great step up for that 2.5. HTML markup. So this is a big one as well. So the version of Gravity Forms includes a major rewrite of the HTML markup that outputs forms to the browser. Now, I'm not going to go over all of the markup. In fact, I'm not going to go over any of the HTML markup. I'm just going to mention it because it's quite a lot of stuff in there. So definitely have a look at the documentation, the link that I sent before, and have a look at the HTML markup position. Now, it could be one of the biggest challenges for WordPress site owners when they upgrade to 2.5. So you may notice that the style, the look and feel of your forms change because the markup, the underlying HTML has changed. So you might think that you might have to find that forms may need a little bit of CSS tweaking with the update, but thankfully, what they've included is this, and you can see at the bottom of the screen there, enable legacy markup. So if you have upgraded to 2.5 and you found all your forms are now a little bit wonky, they don't look particularly great, you can go into those forms and you can enable that legacy markup, and it's going to spit out the old HTML. So not the HTML5 new markup, the old HTML before 2.5. So your form should look exactly the same. But it's a good thing to go with the new formats because it's a lot leaner, it's a lot faster, it's a lot more compliant, and it links in with the accessibility as well. Because the old one, the way it did things like display buttons and things wasn't quite accessible. It wasn't quite pure HTML5 code, and that's why it wasn't hitting that accessibility. So if you want to go down the whole route of that, make sure that you uncheck those legacy markup. It's putting out the correct, the new HTML markup, and then tweak your CSS according to that. There's a few additional CSS classes. They've not taken away any of the old ones, but they have put in some new ones for this new markup as well. So you might have to go in and add some CSS for some of those. Another little thing before we touch on the demo. If you do have a touch device, and I know this has been a sore point for a lot of clients of mine when they do a lot of stuff on their touch tablets or their touch screens, is they couldn't build forms without using a pointer or a mouse or something. It didn't support the finger touch, but 2.5 does. So you'll find if you've got a touch device now and you want to build a Gravity Forms, then you can just click on it on the field and then drag it across, and you can drag all the fields and stuff across as well to build your forms. So this is a huge, massive update as well. It works really well. I've tried it on my laptop, just dragging and drop. Yeah, so that's great. So you don't have to like hunt for your pen or connect a USB stick with a mouse anymore. So definitely appealing to a wider audience, and it's appealing to more non-developers as well, because a lot of designers, a lot of marketers out there who use Gravity Forms to build landing pages and things, you know, and they don't always have like the full desktop setup with a mouse. They might be on the go, sitting down with clients and stuff, just want to be able to build a quick Gravity Form just to show them some examples. So this drag and drop for touch devices, I give that one a thumbs up. Where's my cam? There we go. Thumbs up. Okay, so that was a quick whiz through all the new or the biggest new interfaces and changes for Gravity Form 2.5. And I wanted to go through that really super quickly because I really want to show you it in action. If you go on to the Gravity Forms website, you'll see 2.5 plastered everywhere, all over the place. But there's this one for a demo of the new form builder, and that's the one I'm going to use to show you. So I'm going to give you that link. I'll drop that in comments just now, and it is a great way of looking at the new 2.5 features. If you don't want to upgrade yet, if you're not quite sure, it's a good way of testing it out to see what's there. And if you've never used Gravity Forms before, we thought it was maybe too expensive and you didn't know what you could get out of that money, then this demo is fantastic. It just lets you, it spins up its own little WordPress website for you. So you can just drag and drop and play with the forms in there without having to pay anything at all. So that's fantastic. It's a great demo for existing customers and for new customers as well. Now I saw something coming through in the comments. Let's just have a quick look. GL photography and art. So with the GDPR thing, with the IP, will that affect the login security that blocks via IP address hammering the login? Right, no. So this it's got nothing to do with logins at all. So this is for Gravity Forms. It's when when a client is completing a form. So Gravity Form has the option to store the IP address when somebody's entering the form, just like as like an additional measure for that. So a little bit of information, and it also can link in with the honeypot and with the reCAPTCHA stuff as well. So it's got nothing to do with security. It's got nothing to do with brute force attacks or blocks. So that's going to be handled by your web hosting provider or by a security plugin, a firewall plugin that you have, such as Security or iTheme Security or WordFence. So great question, but no. So it's got nothing to do with the login security at all for that. Good question. Nick has a question. Are GDPR and the disability the two main international compliance regulations to consider with forms and WordPress in general? Yes, they are. Yep. So GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation. I could be wrong in the R there, but basically it says if you are servicing, if you're in Europe and if you're servicing European clients specifically, then you need to abide by this whole data protection regulations. And it's all about privacy of data and what you do with it, where you store it, how somebody has access to their own data on your system. So you need to comply with all that stuff. And I think you mean the accessibility there. Yes, so there's different countries have different levels and rules and regulations regarding accessibility. Essentially, like worst case scenario, I don't know, worst case scenario is not the right words, but a disabled person could take you to court, could provide a court case if they don't have access to a service that you offer in particular regions and particular countries under particular national laws. So yes, if you are dealing specifically with international clients, specifically in Europe, then GDPR and accessibility should be very high up on your list of things to get right with WordPress in general. Hope that answers your question there. No, that's fine. GL photography, it's okay. It's a great question. There's no silly questions here. Everyone's at different levels, and I completely appreciate that. You know, I started with WordPress in 2006, back then, 2005, 2006, and I had no idea what it was doing. So, yeah, great questions. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, let's have a look at the demo. So I'm going to stop my screen just here, and I'm going to flick on to the demo, which is that demo link on the Gravity Forms website. And let's just have a look at the Gravity Forms in action, if it works. Okay. Just flip to the screen. Okay, and add to stream. Great, that worked fine. So here I am. This is on the Gravity Forms website. It'll ask you for your first name, last name, and email, and you've got to check I comply by blah, 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 blah. And then what it does, it spins up a new instance of Gravity Forms, like of WordPress really, for you with Gravity Forms in there. So I'm just going to take you through some of this. Let me see. Right. So when you go into this instance here, you can see there's existing forms in here. So you can have a look at all these different types of forms. So they've created all these different forms just to give you an idea of the different samples that you can do. So there's an advanced contact, there's a contact form, there's a donation, an e-commerce, an employment application, event registration, request a quote, survey, and a user registration. Let's have a look at the request a quote one here. And you can see the interface is very clean and minimal. And from there, I know it's kind of difficult to see it on the screen there because it is a little bit small. Let's have a quick look on the request a quote. So I'm going to edit that one. Here we go. So you can see here, let's just do a quick preview, just so we know what we're looking at. So here's the preview, the Gravity Forms preview, which is a great thing. If you've never used Gravity Forms before, you just preview your form, so you don't have to embed it in a page. So here it's asking for a name, first, last, email, confirmation, you've got your address, and then please select the services you require. So landscape gardening, grounds maintenance, and then how can we help you, and a reCAPTCHA at the bottom. So that's what this form is doing. Let me see, can I get out of this? If you live in, click on that and go back in, make it full screen. There we go. So we can see here's the new interface. So we've got our field editor in the main window. And then off to the right, we've got the fields down here. So you've got your single line text, paragraph, drop down number. They haven't changed. There's no new fields that I can see. You've got your advanced fields down here, which is name, password, CAPTCHA, consent, quiz, survey. You've got your post fields as well. So title, body, excerpt, tags, and pricing fields as well if you've got some linked into a payment gateway form here. So product, quantity, shipping, and that sort of stuff. There's all your fields here. So you drag your field across here. This one is a single line text. So I can dump it anywhere on the form, up and down, and you can see where it's going. You've got that little anchor text, that little hint that's going to tell you exactly where it's going to go. And here's the column one working. And so I can add it in the beginning. I can add it at the end. Let's just do it at the end. And it creates that new column there for that. And this is a little handle where you can move it around. So you can move it to a new row or move it back up into that column. So when you've got the field here, you can duplicate fields. So if you've got a lot of similar types of fields, you can click on duplicate. You can get rid of it and the little handle here. So once that's selected, and the interface looks very similar to Gutenberg with those little pop-up icons there. Once you've got your field selected there in the main editor, then you can come across this right-hand side navigator and click on Field Settings. And click on that. There we go. And there we go. So it tells you what type it is. So your simple line text. There's the ID number. You'll need IDs if you're doing some programming, or if you're trying to link stuff through in the entries and notifications and confirmations and things like that. So here's the general information about the field up here. Then you've got into your field settings. So here's the field label. So I'm going to give this one, what shall I do? Title. And you can see there straight away that it's updating the live editor on the left-hand side as well. And the description here, you can do input mask. So all this stuff's the same. It's just a different interface. So you can set it required as well. Let's see, appearance, the placeholder into your title, all those sort of things there, and the visibility of the field labels and description. So all this stuff is the same. And the advanced one is the same as well, the admin field label, so you can give it a name so you can pick it up with CSS. I guess there is a new one here called autocomplete. So that it tells the browser to store stuff locally in the cache. And then when you come into another form, it can kind of suggest that you've filled out these types of responses before. Do you want to fill that out? So that kind of a new thing there. But in general, it says all the values are still the same. And here's your conditional logic, which pops out, so you can enable conditional logic. So you can show if first name is, let's just say, if, where's the one? Oh, yeah, I haven't saved that. So yeah, if first name is Bob, then you can do additional stuff. So you can add an extra one, extra conditions. So you can show the last email address if, that one is Bob, all that sort of stuff. So there we go. So here we go. They've got your email confirmation. You've got your address block as well. So again, you click on something and you've got your field settings on the right-hand side. And then you can select which ones you want for the address. So if you don't need address line 2, if you want to do their country, you're not bothered about states, all that sort of stuff there, which these are the advanced fields here. And then checkbox and this one, and then you've got your CAPTCHA down here, and that's the Google CAPTCHA down there with some options for this as well. So you can see here, it's popped up a little warning. Sorry, I can't make that any bigger, but it's popped up this little accessibility warning that says this field has accessibility issues, with a URL link to go and find out some more issues with that. So this again, if accessibility is something that's really important to you, then it starts to pop up all these warnings, so you can get on top of it straight away. Things that are the same, so the settings, you can access the settings again, and these are all, just down here, very, very similar. It was a drop-down menu again in the old version, and it is a drop-down, but it's just a little bit more modern. A couple of extra things like email octopus, I haven't seen that one before, partial entries as well, but you can get to all your stuff from there. So form settings, yeah, I'm going to leave that, I'm not bothered for those. So again, all your settings have this nice modern interface as well. You've got your confirmations. So confirmations send an email to like the admin. Then you've got your confirmations is for when you submit the form. You can say a bit of text, you can redirect, you can email someone, and that gives user feedback. Notifications to admins or to the person filling out the form. Here's the personal data section that you can set the retentions for as well. Post creation, so when you create a Gravity Forms, you can actually create a post from that. I've never really come across a situation where I need to do that. And then you've got Email Octopus, MailChimp, which are email systems, partial entries, not quite sure what that is, enable, and user registration as well. And then you'll get more settings that will come up. So the more add-ons that you add into Gravity Forms, you'll get the more settings down here. So for example, if you added the Stripe add-on, then you get the payment gateway Stripe information down in the settings here, and you'll be able to change that. And that covers everything for that particular form, or you can go into the general settings and set that up as well. So there we go. And nothing else really much has changed. It's just like a big user interface overview. For that, big overhaul in user interface, a couple of few little tweaks here and there to the actual field settings, and kind of major stuff for accessibility and columns as well. There we go. Let's see if we can cycle through some. I'll go back to my presentation now. We'll see, cycle through some questions, because I know there have been some questions have come up. There we go. Right, let's see. Nick says, does Gravity Forms say in which country the data is stored? Right, well, because Gravity Forms, Nick, is embedded in your website, then the data is going to be stored in your WordPress database on whatever host system that you have your WordPress installed. So if you've got your web host installed on, say, SiteGround, you can choose a number of different data centers from there. The default one is America, and if you don't change it, then that data will be stored in your WordPress website database on your web host in America. So example, if you go with GoDaddy, it's going to be in America. If you go with something like Flywheel or WP Engine and SiteGround as well, you can actually choose data centers. They've got some here in Sydney. So that means that your website would be hosted in Sydney, and that's the country that data would be stored in. So Gravity Forms doesn't really have anything to do with the country where it's being stored in. That's going to be where your web host is located, where your website is located. Another question, does Gravity Forms support calculated fields based on data entry into a field? It does have some, not natively, it does have add-ons that allow you to do number calculation. So Gravity Forms has a heap of add-ons, some of them official, but lots of them, like lots and lots, we're talking hundreds of different add-ons for every different type of possibility. And I know there is an advanced calculations add-on. So if you go to the WordPress.org plugin repository and type in Gravity Forms, then you'll get a list of all those add-ins from there. So not out of core, unfortunately, but yes, as an add-on, then you can pretty much do anything with Gravity Forms. So that's a great question, Nick. So thank you for that. Let's just move on. There's no more questions because we're kind of almost up for those. So next week, if you want to join me, I am talking about fixing blacklisted websites. So if you ever found yourself or your client website being blacklisted, probably because you're on a shared server, then I'm going to be talking about how you can go about getting delisted from those blacklists. Now, I know that somebody in the comments mentioned, does this cover email blacklisting? There's a bit of a crossover between website and email blacklists, so not specifically. This is more tailored at getting your website back up and running and getting rid of that big Google red warning sign that comes up for that. So it's a delisting your blacklisted website, and that's a quickie for next week. Please suggest some more topics. There's a link underneath the video in the description for a form. Give me some more topics so I can queue up some ideas for the weeks ahead. That'd be fantastic. A shout out for WPAustralia.org. Have a look at all the meetups that are happening in Australia just now. And also you can join us on Slack. There's a join us on Slack button there, and there's a little picture of Slack there. All those different channels. I've always got it open in one of my windows. So if you've got some questions or just want to meet the community in Australia, join us on Slack and ask away. Next, just a shout out for my website owner survival guide as well. So if you are a designer or developer that hosts client websites, and you might want to check out the was.com.au website to maybe try and convert some more customers into some recurring revenue. See how you can do that there. Otherwise, I am happy to connect with you. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Developer Will, on Instagram at willbrown_au, or Twitter sometimes, and sometimes I'm on there, Developer Will. So yeah, happy to connect. And if you've got any questions about Gravity Forms 2.5 or Quickies or WordPress in general, then you can hit me up on my main website, zeropointdevelopment.com. So thank you guys. Thank you very much for taking your time this afternoon or wherever you are to be with me for the WPQuickies. I really do appreciate that. And I shall see you next week for, what was I doing next week? Delisting blacklisted websites. Okay, guys, thank you very much and see you next week. Ciao.